Greetings and welcome to my analysis of the Paul Levy taking charge of the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center case study. This presentation will go through the history of the BIDMC, the shift in the medical environment, the merge, the new CEO Paul Levy, his management themes, and practical lessons that both public and private managers could take away from this case study. So let us begin. Decades before Beth Israel and Deaconess Hospital came together as Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, each was a leader in healthcare with a long history of personalized patient care and community service. Beth Israel was established in 1916 by the Boston Jewish community in order to meet the needs of the growing immigrant population. It was known for their compassionate patient care, where doctors would spend a significant amount of time with their patients. In addition, many referred to it as a hospital where you would send your sick mother. In 1896, as part of their missionary charter, Methodist Deaconess founded Deaconess Hospital to care for the city's residents. Just like Beth Israel, it was also a community hospital that focused on surgical specialties, and they did so on a very high volume and high capacity. Both the Deaconess and Beth Israel were nonprofit community hospitals. They prided themselves on their Harvard School affiliation and their strong teaching and researching initiatives. Even though both hospitals were known for their great efforts in the medical field, the evolution of the medical environment began to impact both facilities negatively. The move towards a more competitive managed care model caused Medicare payments from the government to decrease, while cost pressure continued to rise. In order to keep up with the change of the medical environment, most felt that the only logical method would be to merge with other hospitals in order to create a larger network of services and, of course, patients. This would also give hospitals more leverage when negotiating with insurance companies while creating administrative efficiencies. All these things should eventually lead to cost decrease. Merging has already taken place before, so it wasn't an entirely new concept. The Brigham Women's Hospital and Mass General Hospital merged and created Partners Healthcare. The Beth Israel CEO at the time felt betrayed by this merger since he was underneath the impression that Beth Israel would be merging with Brigham Women's Hospital. Since this merge fell through, the only way that Beth Israel was going to survive and to remain competitive was to merge with the Deaconess. They also created Care Group with Mount Auburn and the New England Baptist. While the Brigham Women's and Mass General Hospital merge went extremely well, that was not the same for the BIDMC. Rather than focusing on the administrative functions, most of the emphasis was geared towards the clinical functions. In addition, BI doctors were placed in most of the managerial positions, which, as you can imagine, caused major friction with the other hospitals. Instead of it feeling like a merge and collaboration, it felt more like a BI takeover. The lack of cohesiveness and trust led to the BIDMC signing below market contracts in order to compete and failing at improving its market share. This essentially meant you had less patients. From those patients, you were getting less money. BIDMC soon found themselves in serious financial troubles, losing $50 million a year. Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center soon welcomed Paul Levy as CEO. Levy comes with a master's degree in city planning from MIT, as well as his positive reputation of turning around public entities and in doing so in the public eye. Before starting as a CEO at the BIDMC, Levy was the Executive Dean of Administration at the Harvard Medical School, where he served on several committees discussing the BIDMC problems. So he essentially had a clear grasp on the issues that the hospital was undergoing and facing. And most importantly, he most likely had ideas on how to fix them. There are probably several management and leadership themes that ultimately made Levy successful in pulling the BIDMC out of the rat hole that they found themselves in, but I'm going to only focus on 5 of them. Levy's leadership style, his decision making, how he managed his direct staff, how he effectively used communication as a mechanism to change employee culture, and creating a sense of urgency in order to prompt the change process. Levy's leadership style is pretty conducive and effective for both public and private organizations. He clearly identifies the structure of power by having defined roles and responsibilities, so there was no confusion on what you were expected to do in order to make strides towards achieving one vision. His business plan never veered off into personal gain or achievements. It always reflected and exemplified the BIDMC's core values with emphasis on their caring, warm persona. In addition, he prided himself on honesty, openness, transparency, inclusion, and accountability. His motto was there shouldn't be any leaks or rumors started if you are always upfront with what's going on. As the saying goes, straight from the horse's mouth. Not only giving employees all the information up front, but also allowing different avenues for them to offer their opinions or suggestions, as Levy did when the Hunter report came out. He made it available for all to review and encouraged employees to reach out to him directly with their thoughts. This genuine gesture creates buy-in from the employees. It also created an environment conducive for supporting and empowering employees. No more dictating, controlling, and directing, but more collaboration. We are all in this together to solve problems, take risks, and create solutions. This proved to be good for the organization, but most of all the employees, where they could see their value and felt like they had a major part in the bigger picture. He also used motivation immediately. Once he found out that the hospital was at risk of being sold, Levy did not have this information. In fact, he sent out a company-wide email making everyone aware of the severity of the issue and what would happen if the recovery plan failed. This ignited motivation from the staff because no one wanted the hospital to fail. With the board of directors and ability to lead, make decisions, set clear objectives, hold management accountable, successfully implement changes, and create cohesiveness throughout the organization, especially between administrative and medical units, Levy vowed that he would not fall into past mistakes. He would take action and not sit on things. He promoted this new way of decision making by stating that all problems should be approached in the same manner as doctor treats his patients. Determine the problem, research the problem with the limited time that is presented. Apply the solution. Check back to see if the presented solution worked. Now, if the solution doesn't work, then you research more and apply another solution. Now, on Levy's part, this was a smart and logical move since everyone throughout the hospital understood this method of decision making and problem solving. So it's not something that had to be learned. It was just something that had to be adopted for all decisions throughout the organization. Another thing that Levy noticed was the dysfunction at meetings. In order to deal with this chaos, Levy established ground rules in order to create an environment that was cultivated with respect for each other. Rules such as not interrupting, showing up on time, and if you had disagreements, they must be addressed at the meetings, not at a later date during a secret meeting. Now, all of these things might sound childish, but it was necessary for Levy to do in order to get things done. The final thing that Levy did in order to create effective decision making was to limit the size of groups and committees. Understanding that groups that were too large made it difficult for everyone to feel comfortable speaking up, and groups that were too small may not have the variety and the representation from all departments throughout the organization. So it was extremely important for Levy to make sure groups and committees reflecting a number that would not inhibit decisions from being made and to also be diverse. When it came to managing his immediate staff, Levy definitely had his hands full. The Attorney General that was responsible for putting the hospital on the chopping block eventually put those plans on hold, but needed to remain in the loop. The Care Group Board of Directors were, you can say, Levy's problem child. He constantly had to stay on top of them since they were constantly making decisions that went against the best interests of the BIDMC and the other hospitals. So much so that Levy had to create the Care Group President's Council in order to keep an eye on the board. In line with his decision-making style in creation groups, Levy also decreased the number of his own board. The BIDMC board went from 44 members to 15 to 18 members. This improved his relationship with the board members. He worked closely with the CFO and COO to ensure that they were all on the same page, and that was to turn around the hospital. When Levy found out that the COO was not and was going against the grain, Levy was not afraid to make tough decisions that were in the best interest of the hospital. So he fired and replaced the COO. He supervised the chiefs, but his most bold move would have to be when he recognized that nurses were the backbone of the hospital, and he had the chief of nursing report directly to him and no longer to the COO. This gave the nursing staff a boost in morale and sent a clear message throughout the hospital that care and compassion was and will always be an important aspect to the mission. Levy's communication style was pretty straightforward. He believed in being open and transparent when you can, being honest, commiserate, compassionate, and empathetic, essentially walking in the shoes of his staff in order to adequately address their needs thoroughly and offer solutions to assist them in successfully executing the core values of the hospital. He did this by not only making himself visible throughout the hospital, but he effectively used email and internet in order to share important information straight from himself and welcomed feedback. This allowed the recovery plan to gain buy-in from the staff and also limit the rumor mill since information was coming directly from himself. Levy was able to create a sense of urgency when he was honest and transparent by sending out the email to all staff, making them aware of the severity of the state of the hospital and what would happen if the recovery plan was not successful. The hospital that they hold so close to their hearts would no longer be the same. They would lose their Harvard affiliation, doctors would no longer be professors, the hospital would not be known as a teaching hospital, and most importantly, they would no longer be a warm, caring place. This sparked a range of emotions for staff since everyone who worked there took their job seriously and wanted the hospital to remain as is, and the reason they decided to work in the medical field to begin with. So change was necessary. It was do or die. Things as usual is what got the hospital in this mess. So business as usual was no longer business as usual. Things needed to change with new creative ways in order to dig the hospital out of its financial woes. Levy also understood that creating urgency was just the final step. He realized that he would have to implement the change, and the only way of doing so would to be roll out implementation principles such as holding people accountable and the feedback loop. This goes back to his decision-making style of action rather than inaction. He also created a longevity plan for the hospital for life after the success of the recovery plan, essentially letting the BIDMC staff know he was here for the long haul and even had plans for its future. He did this by having a plan for dealing with capacity issues while never compromising the reputation of the core values of the hospital. He realized and acknowledged the nursing market in Boston was extremely competitive since there was no shortage of great hospitals in the area. So to be able to attract and retain talent was extremely important. And investing in research and development in order to come up with innovative methods for new medicines and cures. The practical lessons learned throughout this case analysis would be that open and transparency goes a long way. Besides the need for job security and career advancement opportunities, employers want to be a part of the workplace culture that puts a premium on delivering the truth. They desire their leaders to be proactive in sharing where the company is headed and forthright about its future. And Levy's openness and transparency led to problems being solved faster, teams being built easier, workplace relationships grow authentically, staff begin to promote trust in their leader, and overall higher levels of performance emerge. Another lesson learned would be the importance of accountability. Employees must be aware that it is their responsibility to complete the tasks they are assigned, to perform the duties required by their job, and to be present for their proper shifts in order to fulfill or further the goals of the organization. And if tasks are not completed and functions of the job are not performed properly, then that employee would also be responsible for dealing with the repercussions. And as we learned, Levy was not afraid to make tough decisions. We also learned the importance of getting all levels of the organization involved in order to get buy-in for implementations and changes. It gets people involved. It shows that you value and respect their respective areas of expertise, and it empowers them to take action. Finally, always have next step plans. If the recovery plan proves to be successful, employees will be on an all-time high, and you want to build on this momentum. And Levy did this by having 3 models for the next step plan in order to deal with capacity issues, nursing, and research and development. In closing, I believe both private and public employers can learn valuable lessons from this case study. And if you take one thing away, it should be when you are able to come together, stay together, and work together in order to achieve a singular vision, your achievable milestones have no boundaries. Thanks and take care.